Wow, I was just recording a video and realized it wasn't recording. But anyways, okay, I'm back with another video. And this time I'm going to talk about why I chose not to have a baby in the hospital and why I chose to have such a sacred experience at a holistic birthing center and why I didn't do it at home instead. This is my second born child. Say hi, Ian. This is Ian's soul. Yes, you are cute. Oh my gosh, baby doll. Oh, he's so cute. Yeah, and I have a 4-year-old who's about to be 5 this May, Cadence. I also did not have him in the hospital. I had him in a birthing center. Well, we'll talk about that as well. But basically, with Cadence, I was seeing an OBGYN up until about like 30 weeks or something. And my appointments were very like, we're gonna talk about that. Switched over. I finally was like, me and my partner Casey, we were like, we don't want to have a baby in the hospital. And this was before we kind of like really educated ourselves and like got really deep into hospital versus birthing center. We just knew at that time like we wanted to have like this beautiful sacred experience. Like I wanted to be in the water. But in Ohio, that's where we were when we had Cadence. They, at the time, I don't know if it's changed, but they did not allow water births. They allowed you to be in the water during labor, but then once it was time to push, you had to get out of the water, and they said it was because there were a bunch of risks and it's not safe and yada yada yada. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, what are you talking about? So, having him there was it was a beautiful experience. Like the suite was gorgeous. Like I felt like I was like at a resort. Huge room. My mom and my cousin were there as support for us. They really weren't supportive because they were sleeping the whole time. Shout outs to them. But yeah, so let me give you a little backstory. This birthing center was in a hospital. So it was like off to the like a little section of the hospital, and so just in case something were to go wrong, they just transferred you into the main hospital. So although like the room felt like a holistic birthing center, it was still in a hospital setting. And I found out later on, like right before I was about to push the baby out, I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm in a hospital. I might as well just had him in a hospital. I tested positive for GPS, so they had to give me antibiotics. Again, at the time, I was like just starting my holistic journey. This was almost 5 years ago. And I also wasn't aware of our birthing rights and stuff like that. So I was not educated on making informed decisions. My midwife at the time and like the OBGYN that I was seeing before, they also did not inform me on, just the facts and stuff like that on making decisions. So I decided to take antibiotics because I was like scared, like if I don't take antibiotics for GBS, which I will talk about GBS in another video, then I was scared like, oh, there's all these risks and something might happen to the baby. And yeah, so it was a fear-based decision. So because I was doing the antibiotics, I had to get out of the water. There was just like a lot of like rules and stuff that I had to follow that first pregnancy. So it wasn't as sacred as I imagined. Still obviously a beautiful experience, all natural, no epidural. So I'm editing my video from right here, and I just forgot a very important part of my story. Yeah, they gave me an epistemology because they were like concerned that the umbilical cord was wrapped around baby's neck. And they were like, well, we don't want him to suffocate. So they didn't even tell me like, they just didn't give me any type of information other than you need to have an epistemology. That's the only way that this is going to happen. And so they call in literally a whole squad of doctors. And I'm like, this is why I don't want to have the baby in the hospital, was because I don't want to be surrounded by a bunch of people that work in a hospital. I want it to be super sacred and just very personal, me and my family. And I trusted my body. So they didn't even really give me a chance. It was like as soon as they saw that the umbilical cord was wrapped around, it wasn't even like the heart rate was dropping or anything. They were just like freaking out. So then all of a sudden, Doc was like, break the bed. And they just brought out a bunch of surgical stuff and freaking cut my vajay open. And I'm like, yo, had to stitch me up. So yeah, that wasn't a pleasant experience. And yeah. Later with Ian, my midwife ended up telling me that that's like the very last thing that they do when the baby has the umbilical cord wrapped around the neck, especially if the heart rate isn't even dropping. So yeah, I was kind of salty about that. So with Ian, completely different. Casey and I are in a completely new space. We are back in California, living here. Hi, Bub. I'm recording. Okay, so yeah, knowing what I know now, Casey and I were like, yeah, let's make this experience even better. If it were up to us, we would have had the baby at home, but we do live in an apartment. It just didn't feel like, yeah, we can make it beautiful, of course. Wherever we had the baby, it would have been beautiful, but we just weren't feeling having the baby in this apartment. Like, we've always imagined, like, once we do have a home birth, like, it's in our actual home. You know, we're working towards owning a home. So yeah, we'll save that for the next child. But so anyways, being here in LA, at first it was very hard to find a holistic birthing center that would accept my insurance. So Casey and I we did a few different tours of the ones around us in LA. And a lot of them would charge anywhere from like $7,000 to $10,000. And so we were preparing ourselves to pay that. But I continued to look, and so I started my prenatal care somewhere that did accept my insurance, just so I can start going and making sure everything's good. We went to go to a regular OBGYN in a clinic, or doctor's office, whatever, and I was not feeling it. It was even worse than the first time around, like having the baby in Ohio. That was already like, I felt like I was just going to the doctor's office and it was the same thing every day or every time. But like this time, it was like the energy was just it was not it. I would go and it was literally like a 2-second appointment. They would, check my weight, do the blood pressure, take me into the room. Oh, I do a urine test. And then it'd be like, oh, how are you feeling? Oh, let's check on the baby. Mind you, and see, I've already grown so much from the beginning of my pregnancy to now, because it was like, even in the beginning of my pregnancy, I was still saying yes to certain things, even though like my intuition was telling me, don't say yes, you don't have to. But it was just like the pressure, I was falling into pressure. And so I've like grown so much from the beginning of my pregnancy till now, like this third child that we're gonna have, when we have that child, no, like I'm doing it. It's all me. I'm listening to myself for real. But yeah, they literally gave me an ultrasound every single appointment, like for the first 4 visits. And like, I personally don't believe in getting that many ultrasounds. This is not medical advice. This is my personal experience. I just don't feel like you need to do all of that every single time. But again, they just made me feel like they were just pressuring me like, oh, well, this is the best way to check the heartbeat and stuff. And it's like, is it though? That already was rubbing me the wrong way. Every time I go in and they'd ask me, eventually after the 4th one, I was like, look, I'm not getting any more ultrasounds. Like, I don't feel like this is right. Like, my body's telling me I don't need all these ultrasounds. Like, baby's fine. I'm good. Another thing I did not like about being at a doctor's office was every single time, regardless of how many times I said it, I told them I am not getting the COVID vaccination. I am not vaccinating my kids. Cadence has never gotten 1 vaccination. I just am not about the vaccination. So I felt very judged by them, and like they would pressure me all the time, like, well, you're putting your life at risk, you're putting the baby at risk. And it's just like, where's the information behind why you're saying all this? Like, nothing was just like, they didn't give me any type of like space to make informed decisions, and I was not about that. So I was telling Casey, I'm like, dude, I don't care at this point. Like, we need to hurry up and just go pay for one of these birthing centers. Like, I just want to get out of here. So we were getting ready to, and then all of a sudden I found a birthing center, which actually the birthing center that we were going to pay for reached out to me and was like, hey, there is a birthing center. It's a little bit farther out, but they do accept your insurance. So I would love to refer you to them. And I was like, wow, you're such a lifesaver. And that was super nice. So I ended up reaching out to her. So started my care at the Holistic Birthing Center. Met my midwife for the first time. First of all, you walk in and it's like a home. You literally feel like you're in a house. So beautiful. Like, the vibes were just there. Our appointment lasted like an hour, 20 minutes. And if you see an OBGYN or you go to a regular doctor's office, you know that your appointments last probably like 10 minutes, but you're maybe there for like an hour because you're either waiting or like waiting. But this was no waiting. Like, we walked in and we were there. She took so much time to get to know us, and not just like, what's your medical history and all that stuff, or like, what are your goals? Like, no, she really wanted to know who we were as people, like, what are your values? And then she informed us on so much information. Like, we thought we were already doing this whole natural, holistic, like, pregnancy thing. No, like, this took us to a whole other level. Like, she informed us on so much stuff that I was not aware of. Like, MTHFR, I was like, what are you talking about? Gene mutation? Oh wait, this is why I'm depressed and I have anxiety, and oh, it's genetic. Like, so much stuff that she was telling us, and like different information about all the tests. This is what this test is. This is why, or this is the glucose screening. This is all the information on it. But personally, this is why I don't recommend it for moms. It was like, she would always give us, you know, her opinion, but she also gave us the facts, the science to everything. So sadly and unfortunately, she reached out to us maybe like 32 weeks and was like, you know, unfortunately things have changed with your insurance and I'm not going to be able to start accepting it starting in December, like starting December 1st. Mind you, my due date at the time was December 17th, which we'll talk about my due date that kept changing. And so I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm literally having the baby. And I was, you know, a little bit upset, but then I was like, you know, everything happens for a reason. And she referred us to another birthing center, which this birthing center, we actually were going to go there as well, but we didn't. And so I was kind of like bummed because I was just like, oh, I'm so far along already. And now I have to like get to know a new midwife. And like, I'm already in love with this space. And like, so yeah, that happened. We ended up changing to a different birthing center. And I am beyond grateful that it happened because like, I'm so in love with them and I'm going to shout them out. They're called Pure Births. They're in Valencia. So Tiffany, she's like amazing. It's her birthing center. I was a little bit nervous at first initial appointment just because I'm like, we're so, like I said, we're so far along, and like having to get to know someone that's gonna like help you bring in a baby into the world, like it's just super sacred to us. So we weren't really too excited about it. But once we got there, we were like, okay, it's basically the same as the last birthing center, but we even like gained like a deeper connection, I feel like, at this birthing center. Super beautiful. Same thing as like having birth with Cade. Like the birthing suite was just, it was like you felt like you were like at a resort and you had a beautiful jacuzzi looking tub and it was just very clean. The energy was really good. Like you'd walk in and it just smells fresh, like you can breathe. And like, you know, same thing, the appointments were longer. It wasn't rushed, like, okay, yeah, baby's good. No, it was like, yeah, like, how are you? Like, it was okay if we took a pause and weren't talking for a minute and just, you know, sharing space. Like, that's just how it was every appointment. And they were also very informative. It was always, you know your body best. So that's something that is a huge difference of having a baby in a holistic birthing center and getting prenatal care there versus or just having midwife. Say if you're having home birth, having a midwife, you know, especially a holistic midwife. That's just a difference. It's more about, what do you want? You're creating the sacred space to bring baby in the world. It's your body. I'm going to give you the information that I know and the knowledge that I know, and maybe even I'll give you my opinion. But at the end of the day, you make the decision. You don't get that in seeing an OBGYN all the time. And if you do, then you're really lucky and you have a really good OBGYN that is working with you, because I feel like they're more of like on the business side of things. They do what they're taught and told, and they have to follow certain protocols. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's, yeah. We could say that for another discussion, I guess, when we talk about birthing rights. But I just wanted to kind of go over like the different vibes of OBGYN and having baby in hospital versus going to a holistic birthing center. Oh, another thing that I didn't talk about was doing it doing labor and delivery at a holistic birthing center. They don't intervene. It's very, and I'm gonna talk deeper about this when I talk about labor and delivery, but it's very like, okay, we're here for your support. Call us when you need us. We'll come in the room. It's, what do you want to do? How do you want to bring baby in? Oh, you want to have incense burning? You want to have some sage? Oh, you want to... And yeah, it's just really about, it's like all about you and like what you want to do. They really are just creating a sacred space for you. And yeah, like you could eat whenever you want to eat. A lot of hospitals, they don't want you eating. But yeah, no, it's literally like you do your own thing. We're here to provide the tools. We're here for the support. But it's all you. Like they are even like, we don't want to catch the baby. Like Casey should catch the baby. So you don't really get that in a hospital setting. You know, it's very like, let's get the baby out. Let's make sure it's a, you know, healthy, safe delivery. But they don't create that magical, sacred experience for you as pregnancy and birth should be. I mean, you're bringing a whole human into the world. So it should be as sacred as possible. If that's what you like. If you're just like, I want to push this baby out, just want to make sure it's good, then, you know, maybe a hospital is for you. But if you are about the magic in birth, then definitely look into finding a holistic birthing center. Okay, I'm over here editing again and I forgot something super important. Is another plus is that at a birthing center, you get to go home maybe like 3-4 hours after you have the baby. You don't have to stay there overnight like you would at a hospital. Sometimes you have to, they make you stay for like 2 nights, but no. At a birthing center, they get you home as soon as possible so you can bond with baby and dad and, you know, get them in their home with your own bacteria, and it's beautiful. I'm sure there are some other pluses that I'll think of as far as doing it in a birthing center. But I guess, you know, I'll save that for when I talk about labor and delivery and I'll dive deeper into it. But thanks for watching this video. Tell them you are ready to take a nap after you drink this juicy milk. And see you in the next one.